Well, thank you guys for joining us today. We're coming up on a pretty big milestone for the Boys and Girls Club of Westchester Liberty and celebrating our 10-year anniversary of serving the Westchester Liberty community this year. You know, I happened to stumble upon one of the early photos and I flipped over the backside and it had 2014-2015 school year written on it. And it was one of the photos from out in front of the club out in Smith and Beckett.
Right.
And there was about 35 kids and a couple staff members. So come a long way in 10 years. So, but appreciate you guys joining us today because I want to have a conversation and share a little bit of reflection time. Because 10 years is a big milestone, and sometimes it's important to realize where you've been before we worry about where we're going. So I wanted to talk a little bit today about kind of how the organization started. So I guess my first question, and all of you can kind of contribute to this, where did the vision for starting a Boys and Girls Club begin?
Let me take a shot at it because I lived through it even though I didn't do the work. Patti was in charge of the community foundation. She had started that, founded that, and built that up to a point. One of the projects that they had done was they had always paid for the transportation for Lakota buses to run boys and girls over to the Hamilton Boys and Girls Club. And so that was one of the grants that the foundation did every year. And then all of a sudden, Lakota wouldn't run the buses anymore. And they looked into trying to find private buses and to gather kids up to take over there. And it's just not affordable. So all of a sudden, our kids from Westchester Liberty community had nowhere to go. And about the same time, again, through the foundation, there was a young lady who moved in the community teacher at Lakota schools, Ashley, and I can't think of her last name, but she called Patti out of the clear blue and she said, we need to start a Boys and Girls Club here. And she said her dad had been involved and started one in Indiana somewhere, and she hooked Patti up with the phone numbers for national, and so that started the ball rolling toward a Boys and Girls Club, but still there wasn't any funding, and couldn't find a lot of interest, but Patti pursued it because it was one of the needs, and the community foundation was there to fulfill the needs of the community. As time went along, and you guys throw stuff in if you think of something. You just interrupt me, because I did live this story.
Yeah.
But I'll never forget the one thing that happened was as she learned about the National Alliance in Ohio of the Boys and Girls Clubs, and somehow she got word that the governor, or not the governor, the then attorney, Mike DeWine, had settled a big lawsuit, I think against a drug company or a bank or something. Anyway, he had some extra money to give out, and he was going to give some of it to the Boys and Girls Clubs of Ohio. And so it just so happened about the next week we were going up to the Ohio GOP Christmas party, and we were standing there against the wall and the door opened and in walked Mike DeWine. She said, I want to talk to you. She said, we need that money. We want to start a club in Westchester. And Mike, oh yeah, we're going to have some money to give out. And, we'll think about it. This money is to build new clubs. And well, that's what we want to do. And, it goes back and forth. And he finally says, well, how much money do you want? And she says, well, I'm going to put my grant in for $2 million. Yeah. What? he about jumped out of his skins. Yeah. But she ended up giving $750,000 to start the club. And that's when she started looking for a building and starting to hire teachers and the whole thing. And then the cooks kicked in and said they'd help fund the executive director at the club. And just from there, what do you remember?
What do I remember? Yeah. I remember the excitement, the excitement of it, to think that we could do something like this and make our community, the kids are needed. they are dropped off at the bus and there was nobody there, da da da. Not nobody there, but nobody there to give them love and caring and some direction in their life. So
you're in this room with then Attorney General Mike DeWine, today Governor DeWine, and you're soliciting a little bit about his willingness to contribute to this vision, and $2 million surprises him. Talk a little bit about your dialogue and the relationship you built with him to get the $750,000 to really launch us into moving forward with the club.
Well, I think that part of it was I'm a political person too. And I don't think he wanted to look shabby over that. That he's going to be stingy now that we've got something here that we want to have done. And well, it happened then. I just said, we got to have this. We've got the people involved and we need to have this. And didn't we say we were going to name it after him or something? I don't know.
I don't. You have to give him $2 million. I'm sure you would have.
Yeah.
I think what Mike DeWine found out is just like everybody else. Nobody can say no to Patti.
I remember when you came back and said, "We have $750,000 from Mike DeWine, and now we have to get it done." And we were all like, "What?" And what does that mean, Patti? And she said, "Well, we've got to start raising a lot of money. And we have to build a building. We have to staff it with very solid leaders. We have to write policies and procedures. We have to build programs." She said, "You have to understand, this is not just an after-school program. This is about, like you said, developing our kids, our youth, and painting a vision for them so that they know what they can accomplish in their lives."
And I think about that same time, Patti was really getting ready to retire from the community foundation and retire from everything.
Yeah.
But it turned out that to raise the money, she became the chief fundraiser for the Boys and Girls Club. And he had to contact with the national and got all that stuff going. So,
Well, we were, like you mentioned, the foundation. Patti built that up from nothing to well over $10 million. And during that time frame, she taught us the meaning of philanthropy. You need to build a philanthropy for the community. Do something that tugs at your heartstrings. And she said, that's what a foundation is all about. Well, that then led into our love for the Boys and Girls Club philosophy, because she said, this community is only going to be successful if we have successful children being developed in this club. And she was so right.
So, and I love that. I think the vision of that you can hear the passion behind that. So I'm going to ask you a question, Patti, and dial into that. Where did that passion come from with kids and families? Because, and I'm sure you probably heard a lot of this in the early stages too, and occasionally I hear a comment or a concern around the idea that, well, this is Westchester. We're a very affluent community and very engaged with one another in community, and is there really a need for a Boys and Girls Club in Westchester? So talk a little bit about kind of the passion when this came up of what drove that message from you to folks in the community.
Well, you're right. Everybody thought, hey, we don't need anything. We're the creme de la creme of the community now. So, why would I give you money? And so we just, Karen, and we had a great group of people that were with us here, and we started doing some, just come in and see the kids, come in and do this, come in and do that. Let's do with the parents. The parents were right in with it. I mean, they were just so thrilled that they could see that their kids could drop off after school. It was an after-school program to begin with, some of it, and the parents were just, over the moon about it, and picked up and they all saw, and then the people started coming in, and they thought, well, this is a good thing. And when the the who's the guy that gave us the big money? It wasn't the check. Who gave us a check from?
Anonymous?
Huh?
But that's down the road. I think what he was asking about is your passion for just doing something for people in general in the community and then for the kids, and where did that come from? And I think, knowing you, I just know you've been that way all your life. You've always worried about, we'd go to parties and there'd be somebody standing over here in the corner that didn't know anybody. She'd immediately walk up and meet them, because she didn't want them to feel left out. And I think just the way she was raised, or Christian principles would.
We had an only child. That's the big thing too. I mean, you always are looking for people to talk to.
Patti does not know a stranger,
No.
as you said, and she loves people. I mean, sincerely cares about people, and their need became her need. And then she would paint that vision to the contributors of the club, and we were all in. But she wants everyone to succeed in life.
Yeah. So did we mention $750,000?
Yes,
Yeah.
from Mike DeWine.
From Mike DeWine.
And that really put a gun to our heads,
did.
Patti, because I'm not sure we were quite ready at that point to launch.
was ready.
She was ready, but we mentally and financially weren't set. And I'm happy to say that Patti got us going very quickly. She said, look, we have to implement this plan because we have to use these proceeds from the state of Ohio. This is serious stuff.
I have to use it
And-
3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
And
We
it has
had
to be
to-
for building.
And exactly, building this facility was expensive, and she had so many people pledge early on in order to get it off the ground.
I think one of my favorite quotes when I walk through our building today is the quote that's out in the lobby that sometimes you have to take the leap and build your wings on the way down.
That is Patty's favorite.
And that
my favorite.
now encompasses the story that you guys just shared of here's a little bit of a vision and just a little bit of really engaging the community and sharing the passion and the need, created the opportunity to take the leap, right? So talk a little bit, because I think in that process, and now it's go time, right? And you're a lot of conversations and you're building community and you're relying on relationships that you've built and sharing that passion. What surprised you? Were there any surprises or aha moments as you started to raise funds to start the organization and really engage the community in the vision of what the organization could do for the community?
Yeah, well, I think before that, I want to recognize also when just to build something, you had to have land. And so Patti started by going to, a then superintendent of schools was Karen Mantilla, Dr. Mantilla, and she told Dr. Mantilla her idea, and she's, Patti, that's what this area needs.
Yeah.
She said, I'm going to support it. So where we sit right now at the club was the old Union School, which hadn't been used for several years. And there were issues with environmental issues, et cetera, and the school district really didn't know what to do with it. And Karen really, Dr. Mantilla really looked all around the community to see where she could possibly help with the club. And she ended up with this site, and the surprise was what made me think of this whole story was, boy, the neighbors weren't happy about it. And they were at the school board meetings, and you're not going to build that in my backyard, and et cetera, et cetera. But I think since have all come around and told Patti how much they appreciate what she did.
Yeah, because this is a beautiful facility and so much to be proud of. Like Dick said, you can't really envision tearing down a Union Elementary at that time until you paint the vision of what this is going to become. And Patti was able to do that. She went to many school board meetings. She answered every question. Dr. Mantilla was a great support. But Patti had to convince everybody that this was going to work, and it was going to be a beautiful facility that we were all going to be proud of.
Yeah, I growing up a club kid, this is not the facility that I got to see. The club that I grew up in was much more centered around the relationships and building community, peer-to-peer and adult mentor to youth. This facility has given a lot of kids a vision for what they want their greatest future to look like. And that's something I know our team is continually proud of when we open the doors to the community. Occasionally, it's funny because we'll get a vendor that comes in or a contractor that comes in, and you'll hear in that dialogue of, I used to go to Union Elementary.
Oh.
And we'll hear that story today. We even have a staff member who's a former Union Elementary student. So it's interesting to see that sense of community around not only Union Elementary being kind of that place where everyone had a common experience, but now 10 years down the road, the Boys and Girls Club is becoming that place where everyone has a common experience too, and being able to build on that. So,
Patti also wanted to make sure this facility was fun. You remember you talked about having the kitchen and letting the kids cook, and the gym, and letting the kids play. If you're going to work hard, you're going to play hard. And you always loved that concept of making it fun.
And everybody needs to know their name. I always thought about that song. I love that.
I have a funny story with that too, because I think, you establishing that culture of you got to know who people are continues today. And I think it's neat because a staff member can interact with a club member, and just in passing, like, how you doing today, bud? Or how you doing, bud? And the members will stop the staff member and say, do you know my name? Because that's the standard that was set. And it's funny to hear that. Yes, so-and-so, yes, I know your name. It's just a turn of phrase and just passing by and whatnot. But that sense of community in this building continues today. So we still hear that, so.
I think you mentioned the phrase on the wall out there, and that's one thing Patti did. I mean, not only with the names, but there are a lot of touches around this building, this Patti. But over each door, every major donor was asked for their favorite phrase. And so when you walk around from different door to door, you see all these different sayings and phrases and pieces of wisdom, and they're all neat. And everybody had one.
Yeah.
Still up. And,
Oh, yeah.
and I think
it'll always be a part of this club, each donor.
I think that's amazing, from the mentorship side of things, and using, our national focus on creating great futures. That vision that started with you guys and so many others in the community, continuing on and continuing to challenge kids to think beyond the here and now, to what that future might need to be for them, for their families, for their future families, is such a huge part. So I have one last question for you in regards to the organization getting off the ground and starting. And we touched on it a little bit. Who were some of the biggest advocates that jumped on and really championed the message for the community? I'm going to make you think today.
I have no head today.
Well, you could talk about several good donors,
Yeah,
but
that's
I
what
don't
we're
know
trying
that
to
we
talk
had
about.
any advocates per se. I can't. Nobody really got in the way, but nobody really went out there and spoke about the club the way Patti did and Karen Mantilla, I would say,
Yeah.
and Mike DeWine, who became governor, but he wasn't here local doing it,
But he was proud of it.
He was very proud of it. He was here at the grand opening. But the DeLuces, Red and Joe DeLuce, were very much Dave and Jan Cook, Bill and Jennifer McCoy, and I go on, I hate to mention names because
Sure,
I'm going to leave
sure.
somebody out. And there's so many Dick and Phyllis Clark. I mean, just go right down the list. Mark
Yeah,
and Karen Carnahan.
Yeah.
Speaker Boehner and Debbie Boehner.
Oh, Speaker Boehner was very much instrumental and very large contributor. Ted and Mary Hegledge and the whole Hegledge construction, who also built this building, as part of the community. And I could never had a finer contractor. And there's no
It
doubt
was like
about
his house.
But Patti, I always laughed with you about how many breakfast meetings you had and lunch meetings you had.
Oh, yeah.
And then Dick would have to go with you to dinner and talk to individuals about her vision for this club, and we needed their financial help. And by the end of the dinner, by the end of the breakfast, by the end of the lunch, she had some kind of contribution from everyone. I don't know that you were ever turned down. Were you ever turned down?
No, I don't think so.
I don't think anybody would say no to Patty.
No, nobody could say no to Patti.
I think because I was working so hard, they would be embarrassed not to give me something.
So I lied. It wasn't my last question. Because as I'm listening to you guys talk, the foundations of who you are and the message that you've carried through the community to lead and inspire the community to really adopt the club as their own started somewhere. So we talk a lot in the club about being a positive mentor and a role model, because you never know who's watching you, right? You never know who's listening to your conversation. You never know who's watching how you're interacting and how you're resolving this conflict. Mm-hmm. Who in your lives created that foundation, or was that role model for you that helped form you into who you are today?
You want to go first?
Give
Give me time.
Well, I imagine I have to say my father. My father was a very strong Christian man, a leader in the community where I grew up, and I always aspired to be successful like he was, but he was also very philanthropic himself. And when we met, my husband and I, Mark, and I met Patti and Dick well over 40 years ago. And that was back in a day when Tylersville Road was barren and boring.
Yeah.
And Dick and Patti always painted this vision about Westchester becoming a big community. And we heard it all the time. And so their leadership in this community, and it goes to Dick with the developing Union Center Boulevard, and Patti building the foundation and this Boys and Girls Club. And we all followed their footsteps. So we would put them ahead of many in our lives who gave us purpose in life that's very admirable.
Too kind.
Thank you. That's very sweet. She's a good one. If you're going to pick one out, it's her.
So how about the two of you?
The two of us.
Who inspired us? I think, for me, I think my grandfather was somewhat of a role model, but my football coaches and basketball coaches all, became a part of me, but I really didn't develop until I met Patti. And have to say, she's been the driving force for me. I didn't have an ambition to be a leader or to be active or to do anything, the way we have. So it's all been Patti.
That's sweet, hon.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. Well, Carol Jean was my person.
Yeah.
She was a dancing teacher. And I was kind of like her kid that she didn't have. Well, she had her own kids. But anyway, she was just, I always, look, if a Carol Jean was in on it, I liked the way she, I just followed her. I was an only child. So she was kind of like my big sister. And she was a great one. She didn't even know it. But
She was a worker.
she was. And, Yeah, and she was just always so up and so positive, and we can make everything work. So I just thought, well, I guess we can. So we did.
Boy, you absolutely have those traits, Patti.
Yeah, I never thought about that. It's exactly her.
Exactly.
That's right. I know. This is off the thing altogether, but she was down she had a dance studio, and it was down in her basement. And so this guy came in, and he was going to take his first lesson and whatever. And so it was like she was teaching him ballroom dancing. And so she wanted to fly across like this, And so she goes flying across like this, and the guy didn't even catch her.
Oh, no.
I never will forget that. Oh my God, the guy was so embarrassed, and she could hardly get up. So it was fun times, and she was just a really good person, and I would like to emulate her because she was the best. Yeah.
Well, thank you guys for sharing that.
Sure enough.
I think it's always, we're in this dialogue and kind of reflecting back on the last 10 years, and it's interesting to learn who helped made you who you are today, because I think because of your interactions and engagement around developing the organization, founding the organization, and continued involvement today, 10 years in, we're all watching how you guys lead and appreciate and are inspired by your example. So we hope to only be able to try to do our best to tread water and keep up.